Paul Heyman just destroyed Nick Aldis' career and WWE is letting it happen. What you're about to witness is the complete psychological breakdown of a general manager, the manipulation of a corporate authority figure, and the most blatant display of backstage politics we've seen in years. Nick Aldis, the man who's supposed to be running SmackDown with dignity and professionalism, just got played like a fiddle by Paul Heyman, and the consequences of his mental breakdown are going to affect innocent superstars who did absolutely nothing wrong. Before I expose every dirty detail of this manipulation, answer me this: is Paul Heyman the greatest manipulator in WWE history, or is there someone who's even better at pulling strings? Drop your answer below, because what Heyman just did to Aldis is criminal, and WWE management is sitting back and allowing it to happen. The situation started escalating when Bronson made it crystal clear that he wanted revenge on Carmelo Hayes after their controversial match where Cody Rhodes interfered. Reed has every right to be furious. He was robbed of a victory, his momentum was disrupted, and now he's looking to take out his frustrations on Hayes in the most violent way possible. As SmackDown's general manager, Nick Aldis should have handled this situation with calm, calculated authority. Instead, what we got was a complete meltdown that exposed just how unfit Aldis is for this position and how easily Paul Heyman can exploit weakness when he sees it. Paul Heyman approached Nick Aldis backstage with that trademark smirk, that knowing look that says he's already 10 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. Heyman didn't come with threats or demands initially. No, that's not how the wise man works. He came with concerns, with observations, with subtle implications that planted seeds of doubt in Aldis' mind. He mentioned how unsafe the SmackDown locker room has become. He pointed out that superstars are taking matters into their own hands because management seems weak and indecisive. Every word was carefully chosen, every pause strategically placed, and Nick Aldis fell for every single bit of it. What makes this manipulation so insidious is that Heyman was technically telling the truth, just twisting it to serve his own agenda. The SmackDown locker room has been chaotic. Superstars have been interfering in matches without consequences. Authority has seemed questionable at times. But Heyman wasn't bringing up these issues because he cares about order or fairness. He was setting the stage for his real objective, and Aldis was too caught up in his own insecurities to see the trap being laid right in front of him. Quick question for you: what's the most devastating manipulation Paul Heyman has ever pulled off in his legendary career? Comment your pick, because this one might top them all. Nick Aldis' response to Heyman's psychological warfare revealed everything wrong with his leadership. Instead of recognizing the manipulation, instead of standing firm on his authority, Aldis got defensive. He started raising his voice, insisting that he has everything under control, that SmackDown is running smoothly, that he doesn't need Paul Heyman or anyone else questioning his decisions. But the more defensive he got, the weaker he looked. Heyman just stood there, nodding sympathetically, letting Aldis dig his own grave with every word. It was masterful and disturbing in equal measure. Then came the moment where everything fell apart. Bronson stormed into the general manager's office, demanding a no disqualification match with Carmelo Hayes. Reed was animated, aggressive, making it clear that he was going to get his hands on Hayes one way or another, with or without management's approval. This was Nick Aldis' opportunity to establish control, to show strength, to remind everyone who's actually in charge of SmackDown. Instead, with Paul Heyman standing right there watching, Aldis snapped completely. The snap wasn't a moment of strength or authority. It was a breakdown. Aldis started screaming at Bronson, not with the calm authority of a general manager but with the desperation of someone who's lost complete control of the situation. He granted Reed the no disqualification match, but not because it made sense or because it was fair to Carmelo Hayes. He granted it because he was trying to prove to Paul Heyman that he could make decisive decisions, that he wasn't weak, that he deserved respect. And that's exactly what Heyman wanted. Do you think Nick Aldis is the worst general manager in SmackDown history, or has someone been worse? Let me know in the comments. Paul Heyman's reaction to Aldis' meltdown was telling. He didn't celebrate openly or gloat. He simply gave that slight smile, that knowing look, and walked away. Mission accomplished. He'd manipulated the general manager into making a decision that serves Heyman's interests, whatever those interests might be. Whether Heyman wants to see Hayes destroyed, whether he's trying to create chaos that benefits Roman Reigns or Solo Sikoa's bloodline, or whether he just wanted to prove he still has the power to control people, he succeeded completely. Carmelo Hayes, meanwhile, is now a victim of this entire situation. He's been booked into a no disqualification match against a 300-pound monster who wants to literally end his career, and he had no say in the matter. Hayes didn't ask for Cody Rhodes' help in the previous match. He didn't provoke this situation. He's simply trying to make a name for himself on the main roster, and now he's been thrown into a dangerous situation because Nick Aldis couldn't handle his emotions and Paul Heyman knew exactly which buttons to push. The SmackDown locker room has to be watching this situation with growing concern. If the general manager can be manipulated this easily, if he makes decisions based on emotion rather than logic, if he breaks down under pressure, then what kind of leadership does anyone actually have? Superstars need to trust that management has their backs, that matches are made fairly, that safety is prioritized. Nick Aldis just proved that none of those things are guaranteed under his watch. Let's talk about the broader implications of this no disqualification match. Bronson Reed is one of the most physically imposing and dangerous performers on the entire WWE roster. When he's given permission to use weapons, to fight without rules, to unleash his full aggression, people get hurt. This isn't hyperbole or exaggeration. Reed's history speaks for itself. He's injured opponents before. He's been stiff in the ring. He's been called reckless by some, though others defend him as simply being intense. Either way, putting Carmelo Hayes in this situation without proper protection or preparation is borderline negligent. The match stipulation also raises questions about WWE's commitment to protecting their younger stars. Carmelo Hayes is supposed to be a future main eventer, someone who could carry SmackDown for years to come. Why would you risk his health and career by throwing him into an environment where serious injury is not just possible but likely? Unless, of course, WWE doesn't actually value Hayes as much as they claim, and this is just another example of sacrificing talented performers on the altar of short-term storytelling. What do you think happens in the no DQ match? Does Hayes somehow survive, or does Reed destroy him? Drop your predictions below. Paul Heyman's long game in all of this remains unclear, which is what makes it so dangerous. Heyman never does anything without multiple layers of planning. Is he trying to weaken SmackDown's management to benefit the bloodline? Is he positioning himself to take over as general manager if all this continues to fail? Is he settling old scores with people connected to Hayes or Reed? Or is he simply creating chaos because chaos gives him opportunities to operate in the shadows? Whatever his endgame is, you can bet it's more complicated than what we're seeing on the surface. Nick Aldis' background makes his failure even more disappointing. This is a man who ran the NWA as both a performer and an authority figure. He's held world championships. He's been respected as a traditional wrestler who understands the business. He should have been perfect for this role as SmackDown's general manager. Instead, he's shown that he lacks the psychological fortitude to deal with master manipulators like Paul Heyman, and that weakness is going to have consequences that extend far beyond this one angle. The comparison to other WWE authority figures is stark and unfavorable to Aldis. When William Regal was general manager, people tried to manipulate him constantly, but he saw through it and maintained control. When Mick Foley ran Raw, he made tough decisions but always with the interest of fairness and competition in mind. Even Adam Pearce, who's had his struggles, has generally maintained composure and not allowed himself to be completely controlled by the talent. Nick Aldis is showing that he doesn't belong in this role, and WWE might need to seriously consider whether he should continue as SmackDown's general manager. Social media exploded after this segment aired, with fans divided into several camps. Some blamed Aldis entirely for his weakness and inability to do his job properly. Others pointed fingers at WWE creative for writing authority figures as incompetent fools rather than strong leaders. A third group focused their criticism on Paul Heyman, though most of that was grudging admiration for his ability to play people like instruments. The lack of consensus shows how complicated and problematic this storyline has become. Backstage reports, and take these with a grain of salt because you never know what's being worked and what's real, suggest that some WWE producers were unhappy with how this segment portrayed management as weak and easily manipulated. There's a school of thought in wrestling that authority figures should be strong and respected to maintain the illusion of order and rules. When you make them look like fools who can be psychologically dominated by talent, it undermines the entire structure of the show. Whether those reports are accurate or not, they represent valid concerns about this storytelling direction. The physical danger that Carmelo Hayes now faces cannot be overstated. No disqualification matches with someone of Bronson Reed's size and intensity are legitimately dangerous. We've seen Reed perform sentence and tsunami splashes from the top rope onto opponents lying on chairs or tables. We've seen him throw people into steel steps with reckless abandon. We've seen him use his 300+ pounds as a weapon in ways that have left opponents legitimately injured. Hayes is talented and athletic, but he's also giving up over 100 pounds, and in a no-rules environment, that size difference becomes even more significant. What should Carmelo Hayes do in this situation? Does he have any recourse? Can he go over all this head to higher management? Can he find allies who will help him survive this match? The problem is that WWE has created a system where the general manager's word is supposed to be final, so Hayes is essentially trapped in a nightmare scenario created by someone else's manipulation and weakness. This is the kind of storytelling that can make fans genuinely angry, not in the good heel heat way, but in that this is unfair and I'm tuning out way. Do you think WWE should allow wrestlers to appeal general manager decisions to higher authority, or should the GM's word always be final? Comment your thoughts. The timing of this situation is also suspicious. Why now? Why is Paul Heyman suddenly so interested in SmackDown's management structure when he's been primarily focused on Bloodline business? Is this connected to Solo Sikoa's leadership of the Bloodline? Is Heyman laying groundwork for Roman Reigns' eventual return? Or is there a completely different angle that we haven't even considered yet? Heyman's involvement always signals that something bigger is coming, and fans need to be paying close attention to every detail. There's also the question of whether Nick Aldis realizes he's been played. Does he understand that Paul Heyman manipulated him into making a bad decision? Or is he so caught up in trying to prove his authority that he genuinely believes he made the right call? If Aldis has any self-awareness at all, he should be furious with himself and looking for ways to fix this situation before it spirals completely out of control. But if he's as weak as he appeared in that segment, he might just double down on his bad decision and make things even worse. The potential for this storyline to create new feuds and alliances is significant. Will Cody Rhodes feel responsible for Hayes' predicament since his interference caused this whole chain of events? Will other superstars stand up for Hayes and challenge the unfairness of the situation? Will anyone have the courage to call out Nick Aldis publicly for his incompetence? Or will everyone just stand by and watch as a talented young star gets fed to a monster because management couldn't handle basic psychology from Paul Heyman? Wrestling history is filled with examples of authority figures being manipulated by cunning performers, but rarely has it been this blatant and this damaging. When Mr. McMahon got manipulated by the corporation members, it was usually played for comedic effect or as part of a larger storyline where McMahon eventually got his revenge. When Eric Bischoff got outsmarted by DX or Steve Austin, there were always consequences and payoffs that made the humiliation worthwhile. What's the payoff here? Does Nick Aldis eventually wise up and get revenge on Heyman? Or does he just continue to look weak and incompetent, damaging the credibility of authority figures across all WWE programming? The real winners in this situation are obvious. Paul Heyman proved once again that he's the smartest person in any room he enters, and Bronson Reed got exactly what he wanted without having to earn it through proper channels. The losers are equally clear. Nick Aldis looks incompetent and weak, Carmelo Hayes is in serious danger, and the entire concept of fair competition on SmackDown has been undermined. That's not good storytelling. That's lazy writing that takes shortcuts at the expense of long-term credibility. Fans need to make their voices heard about this situation. If you're unhappy with how Nick Aldis is being portrayed, let WWE know. If you're concerned about Carmelo Hayes' safety and his positioning in this storyline, speak up. If you think Paul Heyman's manipulation, while entertaining, is creating more problems than it's solving for the overall product, say something. WWE does listen to fan feedback, especially when it's loud and consistent enough. The worst thing fans can do is remain silent and accept whatever they're given without pushing back when things don't make sense. So here's my final challenge to you. Is Paul Heyman's manipulation of Nick Aldis brilliant storytelling that will pay off down the line, or is it just WWE making their authority figure look stupid for no good reason? And more importantly, how do you think Carmelo Hayes survives what's coming for him, or do you think WWE is going to sacrifice him completely? Get in those comments right now and let your voice be heard, because this situation is only going